for today is Matthew 25, verses 31 to 46, the story of the sheep and the goats. So when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothed you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it for me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." They also will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and did not help you?" He will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Sally Boucher, and I currently serve as the worship leader for Sanctuary House Church. The hymn we chose to highlight this morning is a beautiful song called "When the Poor Ones." It was written in 1971 by two Spanish priests and came out of a political environment that, particularly in Latin America, saw the widespread collapse of democracies and the growing influence of right-wing dictatorships. The time was characterized by torture, mass killings, and hundreds of thousands of enforced disappearances. The response of many in the Catholic Church at that time was to embrace a growing movement called liberation theology. It's a movement that emphasizes that salvation is not just about the next life, but that it must also bring freedom, dignity, and a fair share of the world's goods to all, especially the oppressed. Political and civic involvement are deemed acceptable means to these theological ends. Sanctuary House Church is about walking with immigrants, wherever they come from, whatever their status. Those we encounter are almost always poor in some aspect. Poor in treasure, poor in spirit, poor in respect. We offer them what we can, whether that's food and water, healing, or safety. Sometimes we have nothing to offer but companionship, and sometimes it's even less. We come with our own need, perhaps our need to be needed or to feel important. Maybe we come with sadness, anger, or apathy, hoping for relief. Sometimes we're the giver, sometimes we're the receiver, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. According to our song, when we recognize this paradox, then we know God still goes that road with us. Several of us would like to share with you reflections of the ways we've known that God still goes that road with us as we've experienced it uniquely in house church. I get to go first. With Phil being sick the past almost 2 years, you might imagine, and you would be correct, I've had very little to contribute to house church the past few years. I haven't been able to participate in mission, which had meant so much to me in years past. I wasn't eager to lead worship. Frankly, I haven't felt very worshipful. Did I reach out to others with the right hand of fellowship? No, I did not. And more often than not, I didn't read the book we were discussing for nurture. I was late to meetings more than once. Sometimes I forgot about them altogether. How did this work out for me, you might wonder? They say you get out what you put in. But that was not my experience. I received grace, lots and lots of grace. When I was present, I was loved and encouraged to cry or vent or mourn as much as I needed. When I wasn't, I was missed. Not because of anything I could be contributing, but because I'm an integral piece of the community, even at my neediest. I strongly believe that we were made to live in community. And this community of love that I have felt surrounding me is everything I need to know that God still goes that road with us. Thank you. Eddie?
Almost forgot I had a mask on. Well, that's a hard act to follow. Thank you, Sally. My name is Hetty Reese, and I have taken up the baton from Sally, who started our relationship with Marisol and Liliani by asking her, after taking her to an appointment for immigration, do you want to have lunch? Are you hungry? And Marisol replied, yes, as she often did every time you asked her in that first year of being here in America. And so that was the entree. The other question that Sally asked, of course, using Google Translate, was, how can I be helpful? And that just opened the floodgates for someone who had housing insecurity and food insecurity and no legal status, although she and her daughter had applied for asylum. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this story of Marisol and Liliani. If you've been here all along, you know most of the story, but there are a lot of new people with us now, and I thought it would be good to review and update what's been going on. I love this song that I think Sally chose for us to focus on, along with our theme of the songs of our life. And I wasn't so familiar with it, but I'll just read you the first verse because I think it encapsulates a lot of what we are trying to do as being a sanctuary house church. When the poor ones who have nothing share with strangers, when the thirsty water give unto us all, when the crippled in their weakness strengthen others, then we know that God still goes that road with us. Then we know that God still goes that road with us. And I think for me that encapsulates a lot of what I've experienced in working with this Honduran family, is that as much as I might be giving rides or providing medical advice or searching for the resources along with others in our sanctuary house church, I have come to see the reciprocity that is there. And when I was pretty silent on a trip over to UVA this past week, Marisol said to me, "How are you, Hetty?" And I felt so touched that this is a real relationship that has that give and take. As Sally said, she has mourned the ability to be a part of that. But I say it is all because of you and your open heart that we began this journey. So the story of Marisol and Liliani is that about 3 years ago, they traveled from Honduras along with Marisol's brother, his partner, and their 2-year-old son. They came on foot, they came by bus, and eventually they flew in an airplane to get to Harrisonburg. They did not always have food and water. They paid a coyote a lot of money to be guided on their trip. They did not always have enough food or formula for Liliani. And yet Marisol loved her daughter so much that she wanted to come for a better life for her, to provide the kind of medical care that was not available at all in Honduras. The story of Liliani, who just turned 5 this May, she was 2 when they arrived. She was born a healthy baby, but about at 4 months of age, she suffered a serious brain infection that resulted in multiple insults to the brain, including development of hydrocephalus, and I'll just list out a couple of things that she has to deal with. She has a VP shunt, which helps to drain the fluid that's in the brain. She is blind in both eyes, but she can hear. And she has spastic cerebral palsy. The first opportunities in Honduras were very, very slim for her to have a good life, much less medical care for her daughter. And so Liliani is now seen by 9 different subspecialty clinics at UVA, and including the latest that we have been striving 3 years for her, dental care. And this is because the Department of Social Services finally decided to put her on to public health insurance. So that has helped with her medical care, although UVA has provided gratis care for these 3 years. So last fall, this is a little vignette of life with Marisol and Liliani. Liliani contracted RSV infection, and she was in respiratory distress. Her family took her to RMH, and they had to airlift her to UVA for specialized care. She was very sick and needing close monitoring. She was not in the intensive care unit, but she was very ill. And I went and visited quite a few times during that week that she was there. There was a song from South Africa that was frequently on my lips that week. And it was not just for Marisol, but it was also for things that were happening in my own life. This song is called Come Bring Your Burdens to God. You may know it, and I'm going to sing it, hopefully, and then maybe you can join me. It's pretty easy to sing. And as I sang this with Marisol in the hospital, she said, "Spanish, please." I was like, oh, I could look it up in South African. But we kind of just did a little Google Translate, and she tried to sing along with me. She has a beautiful voice, and she loves to sing. And she never, this is another little vignette, she did not grow up Catholic or Pentecostal, which are kind of the two choices in Central America, and really had no church background. But she was invited to a Honduran church, which happens to be Pentecostal here in town. And so I can sometimes hear her in the back seat singing these songs. So this song goes, "Come bring your burdens to God. Come bring your burdens to God. Come bring your burdens to God, for Jesus will never say no." One more time. Come bring your burdens to God. Come bring your burdens to God. Come bring your burdens to God, for Jesus will never say no. Beautiful. And so as I walked with Marisol and Liliani and grew more attached to this family, I was really upset when in January she developed a seizure disorder. And the doctors feel like this is just part of her condition because of all the brain damage that she had, that it would not be an unlikely outcome. And so that has taken almost this whole time of this expanse since January to get her onto medication management that would control the seizures. Additionally, what has happened is that some of her attention and ability to respond to her mom has been dampened significantly. Liliani was able to laugh, to listen to music and express joy, and she is now a lot more withdrawn, and that is just so incredibly sad. So when you think of Marisol and Liliani, please pray that her new medication would work well and that she would maybe be able to regain some of her ability to experience enjoyment. She has been in special ed preschool at Pleasant Valley Elementary for 2 years. They love her there. She had a fabulous teacher with a classroom of 8, and lots of good attention and therapies were there. She will be in special ed kindergarten this year. And we were just at UVA last week to get her measured for a new wheelchair and adaptive car seat and a new bath chair. And so it's just really wonderful to see that as she is growing, the UVA family is responding to her needs and are very well versed in being able to understand and help mom adjust to what she needs. She also has a caseworker with the Community Services Board here in town who happens to be bilingual. She has a heavy caseload, I'm sure, so sometimes services, well, let's just say sometimes I have to light a fire under her. And she also has a case manager at UVA. So, and Marisol has her learner's permit. She's still practicing to take the driver's test, but we had those Spanish and English flashcards for her to learn the signs. And that really helped her pass the test, because the third time was her last time to do it before she had to do more training. So that was a good accomplishment. Liliani is also receiving some therapies at a little place in McGaheysville called Small Talk, which is speech and occupational therapy, and that's once a week additionally, which is paid for through the FAPT services through the CSB. So what have I learned over the past 3 years? Trinity Church and Sanctuary House Church have been integral to the adoption and adjustment of this family to life in the U.S. We went from taking her around to the food pantries every week. We'd go to a different one. We helped her find clothing at the free clothing area, and Trinity has been a really big part, as well as Sanctuary House Church, of providing the financial assistance for them to get legal services. And Liliani is now just waiting, going through the system. She will be accepted as a citizen under this special immigrant juvenile status. And Marisol may just will not likely be able to get full citizenship, but she will have a status of, she has a green card now to work, but she just can't because of Liliani. But she will be not at risk of deportation. And so that has been crucial to allow them to stay here. There have been people who have offered rides for Liliani and Marisol. Early on, Marisol needed wisdom teeth out, and the Blue Ridge Free Clinic helped with referrals to participating oral surgeons. And some of you have hired Marisol to clean your house. She's a very good house cleaner. And as others have mentioned, our small group has been important to us, providing much needed support and care during the ups and downs of life. This past year, I've gone through a divorce, had major foot surgery, and most recently a cardiac issue. My house church community and many other Trinity friends have been right by my side, even when I couldn't walk the road. Many of you have been God with skin on for me, and I am very thankful and grateful for that. Seeing the light of Christ in a mother's deep love for her daughter is a reminder to look for the light of Christ in everyone we meet. And we know that God still goes that road with us. And in the end, we are all just walking each other home.
I'm Nancy Hopkins Garris, a joyful member of Sanctuary House Church. I was blessed with this year saying I'd really like to not have leadership for a year, so it's been a nice break. Thank you all. As we've been saying, Trinity is a Matthew 25 congregation. When the Presbyterian Church began its emphasis on Matthew 25 in 2016, it made sense to Trinity to commit to being a congregation that supported Matthew 25 because of who we've been. Rick Comstock was particularly instrumental in bringing that information back to us and inspiring us for becoming a Matthew 25 congregation. Through the years of service in house church, which are covenanted together to live our faith through the four marks of the church: mission, worship, fellowship, and nurture, we have reached out to our neighbors in service, to those in prison, those who need clothes and food, and those without shelter. The Matthew 25 initiative of the Presbyterian Church USA calls for the whole church at all levels to locate itself with the poor, to advocate and take risks for and with the most vulnerable among us. As we have said, Sanctuary House Church selected this hymn, When the Poor Ones, for our focus this Sunday because it speaks to the question of when did you see the stranger and welcome us? The central teaching of this hymn is that God in Christ is seen and experienced in the plight of the rejected of society, the homeless, the poor, and the parentless. In life's journey, we are closer to God when we love them and share from our abundance of food, clothing, and shelter. Those who chose the alternative, greed, hate, and war, go the other direction and into eternal punishment. It reminds us that we are the poor ones in the first verse, reaching out, that I was really wrapped in love and acceptance. Also, as a sociology major, I really appreciated the commitment that Trinity showed to finding out how groups work together and how to make sure that our communication and our ability to work together was healthy. So Reach House Church was the first house church that I was part of, and it gave me the courage to leave Trinity for a while. And I went exploring and explored and traveled and wrestled with my faith for a while. When God called me back here, they welcomed me back and gave me the courage to make my own call for a house church at 24. So launched me early. Currently, being part of Sanctuary has done the same. Worshiping, studying, and being in community with House Church builds strength and inspiration to reach out to others, even when I thought I had no more to give. Days I thought I was just too tired to go to another meeting. I have come away from our time of deep sharing and fellowship and study and emphasis on our mission with a renewed strength and a renewed faith, energy, and hope. It's been both life-affirming and literally life-saving at this time, in which there's a real temptation for me to feel very sad and fearful. In our time together, we have gone through a pandemic, major losses in many of our families, which for me has included watching Harv go through his increased disability and feelings of loss. And I've also recovered from great changes myself as we've come out of the pandemic and also the whole new world of retirement. The fellowship of Sanctuary includes times of really deep sharing and support. I cannot imagine what the last few years would have been like without this wonderful group of people and without this connection. All this makes very true the second verse. When at last all those who suffer find their comfort. When they hope, though even hope seems hopelessness. When we love, though hate at times seems all around us. Then we know that God still walks that road with us. Then we know that God still walks that road with us. We find God in the face of a stranger or a loved one. Love and connection with others in the closeness of Sanctuary has given me the reassurance that indeed God does walk that road with us. Let us celebrate that assurance by joining together in singing the hymn, When the Poor One.